Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
So welcome to the Healers Café. And today I have with me Julie Michelson, and she is a functional medicine health coach with as a passion core mission to let the world know that autoimmunity is not a death sentence and that healing is possible. And she's very passionate to share that with us. And my question, first of all, welcome to the show. And my question is, how did you know that you were even going to go into coaching and helping people on that level? What was your journey? When did this all start? So that's my question.
Super. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a passion, so thank you for letting me share. I, like many of us, was not born with the desire to become a health coach, but it was through my own personal journey with rheumatoid arthritis that got me where I am today. I was diagnosed in 2004 and spent 10 years in decline, being a good little patient, following the doctor's orders, taking all my medications, and just getting worse and worse and worse. And about 10 years in, my daughter, who was a younger teenager at the time, came to me and said, "Mom, please don't die and leave us. I'm really worried you're going to leave us soon." And that was really what I needed to get into action on my own and, stop being a good little girl and disregard my doctors and try to find some answers. And thank goodness, that began my healing journey. Lots of trial and error. It took a really long time. I had no idea what I was doing. I would learn a little, try a little, learn a little, try a little. And as I had put enough of the pieces together that my brain fog was a lot better and I really knew I was healing, Dave Asprey started a coaching program through the Bulletproof program at the time. Now it's the Human Potential Training Institute. But, and I thought, oh, this is it. Like, I want to help people do this. And that began my journey into coaching. Through there, I found functional medicine, and that continued to help my healing. Fueled a little more passion. I dove deeper and got some training as a functional medicine coach, and just really know that I'm on this earth to help people, shorten what took me years to do and find their road to healing.
Wow. Yeah. It's funny how everyone has their unique journey, right? And a sense when they're born, that this is what they're meant to do. But I mean, there's nothing like illness as a teacher. So how long were you taking, the conventional approach?
For about 10 years.
10 years.
10 years
Okay.
and 10 prescriptions.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, and what, I mean, obviously your child woke you up in that sense, but what was happening in those 10 years that kept it be, 10 years as opposed to 9, as opposed to 8, as opposed to not even going that route? Like what was the good girl syndrome that you're talking about?
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed, I went to the, top rheumatology facility where I live. And I literally was told by more than one doctor, "We're so sorry. We'll keep you, you're so young. We'll keep you as comfortable as we can for as long as we can." And it never occurred to me that like there was any other option just other than to expect decline. And so as a little preface to this story, at the time my daughter came to me, I was in my mid-40s, and my father had passed away at age 54. And he was seemingly healthy until he left us. So I really did not believe, and I hadn't voiced it to anybody, but I didn't believe I would live to see 50. So it was kind of a Hail Mary, if you will. I won't say that I believed I could heal when I started to try these different things. But I had never met anybody that gave me any kind of alternative perspective, because I was so entrenched in the Western medicine world that it was just an accepted thing. Like, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, you're just going to get worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is, I mean, and I totally, appreciate the being in that position, because one of my passions and my life work is, to let people know that the impossible is possible, and that the
Body is magical.
It's beautiful. It's so well made. If we learn to listen to it and, check in, then we can absolutely make massive changes. But what I'm really interested in your story, because you're really representative of the people that you didn't have any options. Like, when I got sick, I was actually already a naturopathic doctor. So I already knew, I was already treating me in the world.
Right.
So in some sense, it was much easier. I mean, it's never easy if it happens to you, because it's your life and your family, your kids, your circumstance, whatever, it's very individual. But I already knew that there were options.
Right.
So that way it's very different. So when how did that shift happen? Because that's what I'm really interested in. Like, how did you, so your daughter says this, you're already programmed basically to go downhill, to expect downhill.
Sure.
You even believe that you didn't
Exactly.
believe that you could heal, because that's not even taught. It's not even part of the paradigm. Right?
Yes.
It's disease management. So here you are, you're in this paradigm, kind of in a box. A child tells you, your child tells you,
Yes.
What were the exact words?
Please don't die and leave us.
Please don't die. So what in that shifted things?
The shift was, I obviously couldn't promise her I wouldn't, right? That wasn't, so I promised her that I would do everything I could to try to heal, right? And so I had no idea what it meant when I said it, what that would entail, what it included, but I told her that I would try. And so that, something about that shifted in me, that, again, I wasn't like, I thought I'd found the Holy Grail and I knew everything was going to be great. And it really was a very gradual healing. I would fix one thing and I'd feel a little bit better, and I'd fix another and I'd feel a little bit better. So it was gradual, but to promise I would do everything I could, it included everything I could. Right. So I just kept going.
Mm-hmm. So what was the first step? Yeah. And so what was the first step that when suddenly you said, without understanding what it meant, that you're going to try? So how do you try?
So I began with diet, because what I was, the two dots I was able to connect on my own in very early on. My eldest son was diagnosed with celiac partway through my journey, and I went gluten-free to support him, because he was in middle school. It was a big shift. And I noticed that my joint pain was a little bit better when I was gluten-free. And at the time, the doctor said, "Oh yeah, you're probably celiac as well. We should get you checked." And still not connecting the dots of the direct influence on the rheumatoid arthritis, right? But
of course, it's a new disease of which you might have symptoms.
Yes. And I do, for the record, fully believe I have been celiac my whole life and did not know. But I was actually unable to get a successful biopsy done, because having gone gluten-free for the first time in my life, when I tried to put it back in to get an accurate biopsy, I was so sick I couldn't do it. Couldn't eat gluten anymore. So, that had happened, right?
Yeah.
It helped. Did it heal me? Was it miraculous? No. Did it help? Sure. So that was my easy starting point of like, I wonder I wonder what other foods might be influencing my inflammation here.
Mhm. So how did you experience your body's acting up, especially when you're reintroducing gluten to do a test to diagnose you with yet another,
Yes,
condition, right?
another diagnosis. Yes.
But how did you experience your body when it was saying like, I can't do it?
Um, well, sorry, listeners. I literally could not leave the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't leave my house. And so
Okay.
there was no, maybe this is a problem. Like
It was clear.
like
Yeah.
a big glaring, I couldn't believe. And of course, doing what I do now, I see it, over and over and over again. We
Of
do
course.
elimination diets all the time in my practice. And,
Yeah.
people
But
are
what
always
what
astounded.
I was meaning more is not like, of course, physically your body was clear, there's no
Yeah.
doubt. But how did you interpret the reaction of your body? In other words, what I'm alluding to is so many people feel like their symptoms are fighting them. It's like it
Yes.
should be another way. And how did you, at that time, with very little knowledge except your own experience of a shift,
Yeah.
how did you interpret that?
So when I was stuck, for that 10 years, I eventually was in that place where I felt like my body was betraying me. And, it was kind of my enemy. It was keeping me from being who I wanted to be and doing what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And um, moving toward and using the gluten, one of the things that shifted partially with the gluten was an understanding. I had been told by the doctors that the inflammation was part of my disease process. And so the shift became, maybe the inflammation is driving the disease process. Like that was just something I was able to feel in my body on my own as I started to make the diet changes and kind of connect the dots of like, oh, well, the more things that I can identify that are driving my inflammation, the better I can feel. And that allowed me to make the shift of partnering with my body and not seeing my body as the enemy, which of course then would allow my body to heal, right? It's not going to heal if it's my enemy. I didn't know all of that back then. It just happened through my own process of experimentation and realization. And I would get a little response from, and then I learned to really listen to it.
Mhm. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
It's quite a journey, but I'm thrilled that you could explain that so well. It's pivotal. People often think like, how do you get to that when you don't know anything? And it's like, it's little steps of listening, and
Yes.
then paradigm shifts slowly but surely through the experience of taking the first step, right? So, and especially you had no clue. So can
No.
you continue your journey and maybe like we'll hop ahead. What is it and how are you now as far as the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, and what was for you um, the main things that made the difference?
Sure, absolutely. Well, right now I'll start with, I'm 51. So yay, I did make it to 50 and beyond. I feel amazing. I feel better than I felt at 40, without a doubt. My life is full. My brain works again. I don't have pain. I'm, symptom free, medication free, and just really grateful.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's quite the journey.
Yeah.
And what did it for you? What, like, because I don't think there's one path for everyone, at least not what I've seen in my practice.
No, people want that, prescriptive. Well, just tell me what to do. And I'm like, yeah, you have your body is unique. Let's figure it out.
Mhm,
So for me, diet was a huge piece
mhm,
for sure. And not only in the sense of learning what my food sensitivities were and removing those foods and avoiding inflammatory foods. But I had grown up on a low-fat diet, as my dad had passed at 54 and his dad had passed at 60. And we bought into the whole, fat heart disease thing, unfortunately. And so as far as the diet piece, what really tipped the scales for me was learning about the importance of, high quality, high quantity, healthy fats. And that was like where the switch flipped for me, for sure. It was my poor body had been starved of good fats for a really long time. So that was one big piece within the diet piece.
Okay. And then, out of curiosity, that's why I have a show, because I'm curious. Right? Was there ever for you, in hindsight, because when you're in it, you might not see it either, but was there an instigating something that triggered the start of your, disease in that sense?
You're familiar with this process, I see.
Well, it is definitely, my understanding of
pattern there. Are you saying that stress has something to do with disease?
just a thought. I'm just asking, open question.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the answer is yes. About 2 years before diagnosis, I would say within a year of symptoms starting, I had gotten divorced from my children's father, and my children were 2, 4, and 6 at the time. And we had just relocated to a state that neither of us had family in. So there was a bit of stress going on, for sure. And I just had this conversation with a client about an hour ago who just went through something similar and said, I don't understand. Like, I felt fine then. And I'm like, yeah, that's not that unusual either, that you get through stress. And then, so for me, for sure, which was a great segue into, it's not just diet, right? It's never just diet. And so that stress management piece was my second big step in my journey of, learning more, getting in touch with my body, creating a dedicated meditation practice instead of being a dabbler, and really focusing on stress management and self-care intentionally.
Okay, I'm going to ask you more then. You're being so open, so I really, really appreciate you. And you can just flip and talk about other people if you'd like. So it's only intended to
bring it.
Yeah. So, because we talk about stress, and that's like a big word, and sure, the understanding of, the sympathetic system, the inability to downregulate all this stuff, sure. Stress makes sense as far as the cause of disease. They say up to 97% cause of disease. But what is stress to you in that sense? What does it really mean? Because we know that people have different events in their life and they don't respond the same way. So what is it for you, or what have you noticed in your practice?
Sure. So my position on stress, if you will, is it is a biological process. So it's not bad. I mean, we are designed to experience stress, but we're designed to experience acute stress, right? That short, limited, oh my gosh, there's a tiger, everybody run. And most of us in society today, wherever you're listening to this, we are all living under some form of chronic stress. And that's where the trouble really begins. And I actually see, big happy events. Body doesn't know the difference. Happy event, scary event, it's the same biological process going on the inside. And many of us, I for sure will claim, I'll talk about myself here, I didn't have the tools, to bring all of that back down. So I tell people, it's not like I don't have a magic wand. I can't help people eliminate all their stress. Like, that's not But we can compensate and teach the body how to come back to that state where healing can take place.
Hi, this is a small commercial break, and for you to let me know that you're enjoying these conversations, please go 1, to subscribe to my podcast, number 2, write a review, because if you write a review on iTunes, more people know about this and I can help spread the work, my work, but the work of everyone else I'm interviewing. And number 3, please sign up to my tips for your healing journey. And you can do that under www.drmanonbolliger.com/tips. Thank you. And do you feel that internal conflict? I think you know where I'm going.
I'm going to let you finish the question.
Is because I agree with your version of stress and good stress, bad stress,
Yeah.
you know, ability to adapt to stress and switch off, and teaching the body, you know, both mentally, emotionally, and, you know, my work is also physically how to turn that off and back. But conflict, if you go back, and how big a role is internal conflict? And what does it mean to you when I raise the issue conflict?
It's funny. So first thing that came up for me was Gabor Mate's work on, you know, the personality types and the diseases we tend to manifest, or, you know, you work with like we all hold stress in our body. And so for me, I will just speak about me personally. I have avoided conflict my entire life, external conflict my entire life, and had internalized all of it. And so, and, you know, wasn't living my true self, wasn't, you know, I again, was that good girl, right? So I did what was expected. And there's no question for me that plays a pivotal part in illness, especially when we're talking about chronic illness like this. And I see it in my practice all the time. I really do.
So do you have suggestions, potentially, or from your experience, how to identify that you're in an internal conflict?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, my work is one of the reasons what I do works is because I create a safe space for my clients, that safe container. And I'm not saying one needs a coach to figure out if they have internal conflict, but one needs to take time, right? Step back and take time and look in there, check in with yourself. You know, are you happy? Like really happy? Not, you know, did you have the best day ever? But like, is your life where you want it to be? Are you, you know, living the life that is true to who you are? And a lot of us, it feels safer to run from and not go there. You know, if the answer is no to any of those questions, we tend to just not go there and kind of put one foot in front of the other. And so I would invite anybody who's listening to hit the pause button. Ask yourself those questions, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I could tell.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I mean you're a coach and you have a background in functional medicine, which is really about also establishing, you know, dietary patterns, all of this, seeing what's wrong. Explain a little bit how your practice goes, or how you work in collaboration with other people as well, I think.
I do both. Yes. So I have my own coaching business, and as you said, I definitely I identify as a functional medicine coach. It's root cause medicine. it's always root cause medicine. I focus on the lifestyle areas. So I love working with clients, you know, and their functional medicine doctors. I do work with a clinic here in Colorado as well. And I like to say I'm the bridge, you know, then one of the docs I work with, when he sees somebody coming back time and time again, and they're not following the care plan, they're not making the changes, that's usually when he'll say, pretty sure you should give Julie a call. Because most of the time, it's not that we don't know what to do or haven't been told what we could do. I know it's, well, what that looks like for you and what that looks like for me is different. You know, how I get that done in my life is going to be different. So that's where the coaching can really create success. So, you know, the doctors love working with me because their outcomes are great, you know, and it's exciting. And for me, it's about the empowerment. You know, it really, as I mentioned before, I had lost my power.
Right.
And you know, so I want people to know that, you know, they have the power to heal, and what they do does matter.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it, is shifting from the victim induced paradigm
Yes.
to that little things matter, what you do matters, you know, and then experiencing the change, you know. So very interesting. So when you take people, you know, on, or you're referred to them, what have you found is the main thing that keeps people stuck, you know, that you've had to sort of help unblock for people? I know it's a big generalization.
That's a really big question.
We have 10 more minutes, not to worry.
I think people's, just like me, I'll go back to me again because I do see it in one shape or form. I think people's stories keep them stuck, right? Their internal stories. So while their stories may vary, that's what's keeping them stuck in place. And those are the things, you know, I always, it's like pulling threads, you know, those are the things we unravel as we work together. And yeah, we can start with diet change, but in the meantime, I want to hear, you know, what are those stories going on in your head as, you know, as you've tried this before. And so a lot of just creating new approaches mentally, emotionally, you know, that mindset shift that you mentioned, you know, that's, you know, if we can't hear the stories, we can't change them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's bringing people to consciousness that it's a story. You know? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so interesting. I mean, we go, depending on the client, sometimes we really dig and have fun with it. And, you know, my background was psychology. So I love, you know, I just love the whole human. And, you know, sometimes I'm like, well, whose voice is it? Is it even yours? You know, and often, you know, it's not. Often it's somebody else's voice that just got stuck in there.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you now an even odder question.
I'm still
and again,
here.
and I'm trying. This is without. I'm really not trying to discuss politics, people, particularly, or, you know, structures, or any of that stuff. What I'm looking at is, now with this whole, you know, COVID crisis, in that sense, there is a lot of stress.
Yes.
You know, and there's stress for numerous reasons. There's stress, one, because of, and I'm not going to take sides because there's so many sides, and so much of it we don't have access to as well. So things sometimes disappear. Nowadays, it's very interesting. So people are stressed about the virus. They're stressed about freedom of speech and censorship. They're stressed about sort of technocratic control. They're stressed, like, there is stress on so many levels. And anyone who appears to speak, you know, against or show another perspective, whether, it doesn't matter how scientific they are, how experienced they are, or how on the scene they are, if it's not the line that is to be towed, um, they're called conspiracy theorists, right?
Or
So,
quack.
or quack, yeah, exactly. As people
Or
in
both.
complementary health, we're quite used to this. But the thing is, what do you feel? How does one deal, or yeah, and you may not have thought of this, but there's a lot of stressors, and how do you position yourself? Because we know that stress causes disease. So
Right.
I'm looking at this like the chances of dying from COVID are very small. I mean, now even the official numbers are quite small. So, but dying from the million other possibilities are much higher right now.
From isolating for 6 months and then dying of a cold or something like that.
Yeah, or suicide, mental health issues,
Well, and that's
malnutrition.
That's not funny. No, there is a lot of, and the people that are stuck in homes that are not healthy, there's a lot of stuff to be stressed about going on. Personally, I feel like COVID is at the bottom of the list. It's what's happening because of that's causing the stress. And I try to be very careful about what I say. I'm back to that the censorship and I can't help people if I can't talk at all. And very interesting though, the one video I did do on COVID, and it had nothing to do, it was just this, it was about, the self-care aspect and what we can be doing, and creating the rainbows, finding the opportunities in the challenge. And interesting enough, a doctor from another country saw it, and I'm speaking to over 100 physicians in another country on Saturday because they were like, I haven't heard anybody say anything positive about COVID. This is amazing. Can you talk to our doctors?
Right. No, that's, and it wasn't censored.
Exactly. Completely different. I actually had a call with them today, and they were like, but you are going to actually use the word COVID in the talk, right? And I was like, I will do whatever you want me to do,
Right.
So different country, different experience. And so I use the words this time a lot when I speak, or write, or I will use the word pandemic. But I stay away from the medical stuff. And I mean, I do even in general, I talk about healing symptoms. I don't talk about healing autoimmunity, because to me, I don't, people say, well, do you say you have RA or you had RA? And I was like, depends on who I'm talking to, because I'm symptom free. Right. So it doesn't matter, I don't get wrapped up in like what's the label and the diagnosis and but it is definitely a time to be mindful and careful and not expected for living in the country I live in. It is a bit surprising. And I actually, my mom almost died from COVID, so I'm not making light. And sadly, I took her to the hospital here, and because she didn't need a ventilator, they sent her home with no treatment at all. Thank goodness I have friends in the medical community who decided that was not going to be okay for her to just die in her bed, because that was what they were doing at the time.
Well, especially when there's these researchers that are clearly coming out saying, there's things we can do for the blood clots, there's things we can do for the immune system. And we've known, I mean, as a naturopathic physician, we've known this for years,
Right.
But what's interesting is we, at least in Canada, we have the gag order. We cannot talk about immunity We cannot talk about, so I'm actually just talking about the politics. That's all I can talk about.
And see, we don't have a gag order here, but as I'm sure you know, because we're in similar circles, you know, the avenues of expression are policing and pulling information and shutting it down.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with, I mean, that's, again, that's the situation, right? Just like in any, you know, whether it's a complicated marriage, how do we as individuals, whatever your, you know, because I mean, you have the good girl syndrome, which you got.
I used to. I actually got rid of that. Not anymore. That was one of my shifts.
No, exactly. You've shifted from that.
Yes.
But this is bringing up many, you know, internal, sometimes even completely subconscious conflicts, which is bringing tremendous stress, also tremendous awakening, right? Because when people can recognize this, they're now they have a chance to look at a bigger paradigm. But what would you say to people who really believe everyone's a conspiracy theorist and just are looking at that? They're, in a sense, they're in the same box as as many of the patients who end up in taking drugs and they're not really getting better. And obviously that caused tremendous stress to your body and damage to your body, which you probably recuperated. So, and it's a question, I don't have an answer to this, by the way. So it's a discussion. You know, I'm in the process of what do you counsel people who are feeling conflict, deep conflict right now, because they can tell something's not right, and this is impacting their stress.
Yeah. Boy, that's a light one.
I've been known to that.
You were going gentle on me before. I really, having not given it any forethought, to be fair, I think I would encourage people to be focusing on where they do have control, right? So a lot of these stressors are about things we don't have control over right now. So I therefore think it's really important that we are taking action where we do have control. And not staying in that. I mean, that's what anxiety is, right? Is you're fretting about the future, you know. So I think that coming back to being present, and you know, I'm not saying it's not solving the problems the world's having right now, right? But really, none of us are going to be solving that from our living room right this minute either. So that was off the top of my head, you know, taking action and control where we can. And maybe, you know, really exploring what are our positions, right?
As in having actual dialogue.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Right. No, I want to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this. I know doctors here who, you know, were told not to use certain medications, not to treat in certain ways. And all I'm saying is my mom's alive, you know, because, so, you know, the doctors, I mean, everybody's stressed in different ways for different reasons of all of kind of the fallout. But I think, you know, for some people, it's towing the party line is their right answer. And for some people, it's, you know, what are my values? And I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You know, I'm going to do what needs to be done. And I think a level of creativity from all of us on how to have some of these conversations, right? And not pretend it's not happening.
Right.
But
well, I think you raised that point, that's, you know, denial, right? Because I think that's a very dangerous place to be in health in general, you know. Is not noticing, but it's, you know, and again, I'm being off the top of my mind, not that I haven't been thinking about it, it's just that I'm the kind of person that only conversations allow me to come up with what because I feel into what I say as I'm in the presence of saying it, and if I don't agree,
really understand.
and if I don't agree with what I just said, I'll say, no, I don't think that's quite right. But I have to really feel into it, and I think that it's to have the conversation. I think that's really important. And there are groups, even if you can't do it vocally, you can't post anything on any media platform without being attacked, like personally attacked, which is very interesting. But there are people that are having these amazing conversations, and I do think that, again, it comes to community support, daring. There is a little bit of that
absolutely.
like I don't know you, but let's go mentally into it. And if there's,
but you went there anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. And then it's like, it's raising the question and then seeing how you align. And I love the way you said it's also finding out. I'm going to misquote you entirely, but what I understood was something like, how do you feel about it? Where do you position?
Sure, because, that anxiety comes up and we're not even thinking about our own feelings or,
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think, I love what you said about conversation. What came up for me when you said that was, well, wouldn't that just solve everything? I mean, if you think about relationship and, then you did circle back to community and to like really what isn't improved with real conversation? Yeah. Really.
I do think that's, at least right now, I'm going to hold to that thought.
I think I'll add on my end, at least for what I'm going to do, selective conversation, right? I'm not going to go stand on the street and just randomly, try to get people to share their deep thoughts with me. But yeah, we all need to be safe and balance the daring with caution.
And appreciate the context too, because for you, I would imagine that the reason that when your mom was sent back, basically without a solution, you knew inside you, because of your own health journey and the work you do, that there's got to be a solution, right?
And I also knew, because of my medical background and training, that she was going to die at home.
Right.
I mean, it was, simple things like oxygen.
Yeah. I mean,
right? Like,
don't get me going.
I know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, well, listen, our time is up, but it's been just wonderful having you on the podcast. And also, I just appreciate the tips you've given people and insight into the process. And is there any last words you want to leave with our
I'm going to reiterate what you opened with, is I want everybody to know that healing is possible and that things you do make an impact. And so if you're out there and you're struggling, take your power back. It's time to take a step.
Agreed. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon. For more information, go to drmanonbolliger.com.